Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's great to see you. There's nothing to remind us of the need for affordable housing like a rainy day. There are people across our community with leaky roofs or nowhere to go. And we're reminded on cold, hot, rainy days how important it is, the importance of shelter. So many people to thank here. I really should just go around the room one by one, right, and thank people. We're talking today a lot about our comprehensive plan. We had the most comprehensive planning process for our comprehensive plan, and that's due to a number of people here, no one more than Rich Hall. So Rich, thank you for your years of work. He took a really national leading experience running planning for the entire state of Maryland, brought it to Newcastle County, changed it a little bit for the local context, and that really started the ball rolling to what we're doing today. So thank you, Rich, for being here. Char Patibanda, who you'll hear from, our head of land use. Thank you for being here. Andrea Allman, chief of staff. We have several housing advisory board members here, and I'll reference the housing advisory board in a minute, what they actually do. But Megan Karasek, who's an attorney at Classy, thank you for being here. Nick Beard, who's an absolute star looking out for the most vulnerable, particularly most vulnerable women in our community, and recently announced a candidacy of her own, so congratulations for that, Nick. Maria Bynum, of course, who is often, she's not directly writing the checks. The president's signature is on it, but I feel like she's pulling the strings to make sure things like this happen. So we got to make sure not to forget Maria. Nicole Waters, who is heading our housing unit now. I think the top housing unit in the state, doing extraordinary work, helping the most vulnerable. Marcus Henry. I'm not sure this library would be here without Marcus Henry. So literally, thank you for providing the roof over our heads today. The land use staff, thank you for being here, guys, Anthony and Matt. So we intentionally are doing this in the Claymont Library, which is the jewel of a neighborhood, which is a jewel, and that's Darley Green, which is the county's first workforce housing development. It was back in sort of Chris Coons, Paul Clark, Marcus Henry times, predated me a bit. But it's really a shining example of what we can do, government working with private developers to make things happen. There's an affordable housing crisis right now in our country and in our community. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, Rachel Stucker is going to correct me if I get any of these wrong, because I probably got these talking points from her. But according to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, 10,400 rental units are needed to meet the demand for affordable housing in Newcastle County. 10,400 rental units, largely due to the crisis of supply. Currently, 44% of rental households in Newcastle County, 44% are moderately or severely cost burdened, which means they're spending more than 30% of their income towards housing. So you can imagine if you have a family and you're paying more than 30% towards housing, you got to pay for food, you got to pay for transportation, hopefully a bicycle or public transportation, maybe a car payment, and you got to pay for potentially childcare and a whole bunch of other costs. And so that's really unacceptable in an advanced society. I like to say we think that we have the resources to send astronauts to the moon, right, to do extraordinary things. They're now sending rockets to the sky and landing them again. And it's incredible that we as human beings can do that, but we can't figure out how to affordably house and shelter every family across our community. So that's what we're here to talk about today, figure out where we are, what we've done, and where we're going. And as I mentioned, you're gonna hear from Char Patibanda here, who's the general manager of land use. You're gonna hear from Rachel Stucker, the executive director of the Housing Alliance of Delaware, and of course Dion Sargent, who's the market leader for Sinair here in Delaware. So it's a community effort, and we think it's important that we hear from all of you. I also just want to shout out the press for showing up to this. Often, they say, if it bleeds, it leads. This is something that's not bleeding. We're talking about comprehensive planning. We're talking about how to address a crisis in our community in an urgent way. That's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of investment, and I appreciate the press being here to cover it. So right now, there are, as of last night, 132 children staying at the Hope Center, 178 adults, 310 people. To date, over 3,000 Delawareans have spent at least one night at the Hope Center, at least over 3,000 Delawareans. And it's important to note, if that facility wasn't there, if we didn't take courageous and dramatic action, thanks to the leadership of Carrie and Nicole and so many others, Larry, so many others here, Kendra, we wouldn't have that facility. People would be sleeping under the rain last night. So, as Carrie and Nicole will be the first to tell you, and anyone on the staff, the biggest problem moving people from the Hope Center, we moved nearly 300 families now through our process at the Hope Center into private, stable, sustainable housing outside of the Hope Center, which obviously is how we measure success. The biggest barrier to doing that is the lack of affordable housing, right? So imagine that. You have individuals coming in, families coming in who have mental health, substance use, joblessness, all the problems you can, abuse, neglect, all the problems in the world you can imagine. Hope Center's doing a really good job helping to support people with those issues. And then they get to a point where, okay, I can move out, and there's literally nowhere to go that they can afford, which highlights the need that we all have. Of course, there are many, many more families who live outside the Hope Center who are facing that every single day. Affordable housing is the cornerstone of a stable and thriving and equitable community. When people can't live in decent, affordable housing, they have a hard time getting to work. Kids have a hard time getting to school, a hard time studying. Having a decent, safe, and affordable place to call home is essential for the vitality of our workforce. Adequate housing helps attract and retain a skilled and diverse labor force. When housing costs are astronomical, many workers are forced to live further and further away from their jobs, leading to longer commutes, increased traffic, congestion. It's obviously bad for the environment. It's bad for people's pocketbooks. So it creates almost a spiral where the situation gets worse and worse. So we got to figure out what to do. And today is about what do we do long term to address these 10,000 some units that Rachel Stucker often reminds us of, these shortage of rental units, that we're addressing that need. So we're going to prioritize the development and preservation of affordable housing units. This includes partnering with local organizations, developers, and policymakers to create innovative solutions. As I mentioned, we've already put in place the Hope Center. We, a couple years ago, announced the largest and most comprehensive affordable housing funding program in the history of any local government in our state, $31 million. That, to date, has enabled us to plan to maintain or create over 600 affordable housing units. And by the time we spend that fund, according to what Carrie Casey and Nicole Waters tell me, we should be over 1,000 additional affordable housing units. Through our Vacant Spaces to Livable Places program that Andrea Allman, Carrie, and Nicole, so many others here have been integrally involved in. Rich Hall. We've taken over 700 vacant delinquent homes in our county where nobody lived, and they're now occupied, privately owned, occupied housing, several of which we partnered with Habitat and for some local nonprofits, Two Fish, other local nonprofits, to develop the ones that no private developer wanted to build. I also wanted to recognize Stephen Davies, who's here, who's engineered many of the communities across our county and state and community in the private sector. He actually raised his hand and called me recently. He said, hey, I have a piece of land, and I want to help be a part of the solution. He has done some hard work putting numbers together, sort of taken off his engineer hat and put on the nonprofit developer hat. And he's working with our housing unit, Carrie Casey, to potentially create hundreds of additional affordable housing units. So Steve, thanks for your work and thanks for being here today. So affordable housing is not merely an option, but a necessity. It's a linchpin for a strong, prosperous community that benefits everyone, regardless of their income level. It's time for us to unite and take action. There's so much talk about affordable housing. It's expensive and it's hard. Zoning issues are really hard for communities. But we need to get literally into the dirt and address this like no one else in the country is. So by doing so, we can build a brighter, more equitable future for our community and generations to come. So we have multiple proposals as part of our approach, from increasing our inclusionary housing program, which has already created 156 affordable housing units so far since 2014, to making it easier to create what's called accessory dwelling units on your property. So you can create an additional unit. I used to live in one actually years ago, so I'm partial towards this solution. But enables people that basically have a 1-unit home to have a 2-unit home. We're looking at creating a pilot program for housing, similar to those that know our Jobs Now program, that enables developers today that have a program creating a lot of jobs with a complex land use program. What we say is if you're creating hundreds or thousands of jobs, we're going to make sure land use moves your project a little quicker, or a lot quicker in some instances. We're looking at replicating that with respect to housing, affordable housing. And so we're going to be bringing forward multiple solutions to County Council for discussion. I don't see any County Council members here, so it's incumbent on all of us to make calls once we're out of here and say, hey, this is a plan that we all support. So I now have the honor of introducing Rachel Stucker. I was a public school teacher 7 years ago when first elected, and was by no means an expert in housing, affordable housing. I feel like 2 of my leading instructors are here today. 3 of them, Nicole Waters, Carrie Casey, and Rachel Stucker. Rachel, I think in this room we have much of the, not to offend anyone who's not here, much of the knowledge of affordable housing in our state, both the funding streams, the opportunities, and some of the deficiencies. She's the executive director of Housing Alliance, a Delaware statewide nonprofit organization that works with partners to address the affordable housing needs in our communities and solve the crisis of homelessness. She works closely with Newcastle County, was instrumental in helping get the Hope Center up and running. She was appointed to the Newcastle County Housing Advisory Board in 2020. We at Newcastle County have gained momentum for our work by witnessing her dedication to the community's most vulnerable. I like to say in my work, people come to me, and often they're up here, 30,000 feet, and then there are other people that are way down here. They can't see the big picture. And Rachel, we have someone who sees both. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Rachel Stucker.
That was a very kind introduction. Thank you, County Executive Meyer. Good morning. I'd say it's a beautiful morning. It is a beautiful morning. We need the rain. I have a tree in my front yard that pretends to die every 3 days that we don't get rain, so that tree's happy this morning. It's really exciting to be here. At our organization at Housing Alliance, we talk about housing and the need for affordable housing, and we talk about housing as the solution to homelessness. People who are experiencing homelessness all come to it from a different experience, from a different place, for a different reason. But the one thing that all of those folks share, the only thing that all of those folks have in common is that they don't currently have a safe and decent place to live. So we know that solving the crisis of homelessness, which in our state and in our community, as in much of the country right now, is a crisis. That solving the crisis of homelessness requires more affordable, decent housing. County Executive Meyer said it all. In some ways, I feel like I should just say ditto, but I'll try to come up with some additional things to share. At our organization, we do a lot of the big picture stuff. We also do some of the in the weeds and the trees stuff. So our organization is contacted every day by people who are having a housing crisis. We're a 14-person staff, 7 of whom are answering calls every day, responding to emails every day, responding to text messages every day from people who are in crisis. And those 7 folks are hearing from people who are about to be evicted, hearing from people who are being kicked out of some place that they're living or staying temporarily. They're talking to people who are sleeping outside and desperate for help and have nowhere to go. We hear from, in June, the most recent numbers that I have, over 1,200 households. So that includes families, it includes singles, it includes couples, it includes grandparents and grandchildren. Over 1,200 households contacted us in June in crisis with nowhere to go. We were not able to help all of those folks identify a solution to their problem because we don't have enough shelter opportunities in our state, although they have increased significantly over the last few years, in large part thanks to the county and County Executive Meyer's vision for the Hope Center. We don't have enough temporary places for folks to go, but we also don't have enough permanent, safe, decent places for folks to go where their basic needs will be met, where their kids will be able to focus on school and thriving and learning, and that's what we need. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity, and that's what we need. And there are two big things when we talk about the need for affordable housing. We work with partners throughout the state who are developing affordable housing, like Scenair and others, the Habitat for Humanities of each county, and other nonprofit affordable housing developers in our state. And we talk about two big things. One is money, and the other is land. Those are the two big things that are needed to really see transformative change happen around affordable housing in our state. Money, because it costs more money to build a unit than people can afford to pay. People with disabilities, people who are working, people in large families, people who have faced a medical crisis. We don't have enough housing that we need a government subsidy. We need funding to come in to make that unit affordable for those folks. So money. It requires money, it requires a subsidy, it requires investment at all levels of government, from the local government to state government, and then of course we know the federal government is one of the largest contributors to that effort. But we need land, obviously. And one of the big things, and it's happening all over the country, is a real push for local jurisdictions, governments, to be looking at their land use, looking at their plans, looking at their zoning, and saying, we want to say yes to affordable housing. We want to make sure that we have rules in place at the local level that allow for more affordable housing, more moderately priced housing to be built, and to be built as quickly as possible. We can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them. Those of you in land use and planning, thank you so much for the proposals that you're making here today to do things differently. It's critically important, and I'm just honored to be here to hear about it. So thank you very much. And I believe I am going to be handing the mic to Land Use and Planning, Char. Welcome, come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh yeah, I forgot to pause. Good morning. I'd like to first begin by acknowledging my colleagues. The plans and proposals that we are sharing today were made in collaboration with the Department of Community Services, with General Manager Carrie Casey and her team, with Nicole, as well as my colleagues from Land Use, first and foremost, Rich Hall and Anthony Sikowski and Matt Rogers, who are also here today, have done a lot of work, extensive research, extensive outreach in developing a list of legislative priorities to help stimulate the production of affordable housing all over the county. We are still finalizing the details of all of these policies, but we ask that the public go online to the Newcastle County Land Use webpage. There you can take our affordable housing survey and leave us your feedback and thoughts on affordable housing production. You can all access here today. The QR codes on the maps here will take you to that survey, so please do participate in our continued outreach efforts. Almost all the policies that we're speaking about today exist currently in the UDC, but they are being underutilized. Therefore, we are re-examining the parameters and the restrictions that these code sections have in order to change them so that they can be utilized by more homeowners, more developers, and home builders. Number one, as the county executive mentioned, is accessory dwelling units. Right now, there is a minimum lot size and a cap on the number of accessory dwelling units that can be built in Newcastle County. We're evaluating these policies and proposing to reduce the parcel size that an accessory dwelling unit can be placed and to eliminate the cap entirely from the code in order to allow for more accessory dwelling unit permits to be pulled in the county. The next initiative we're looking into is what is affectionately referred to as tiny homes. Currently, there is no definition for homes under 750 square feet in the UDC, and so therefore we are proposing to actually define what a tiny home is, and to propose that tiny homes may also be utilized as accessory dwelling units and can be placed in certain residential zoning districts. We'd love to get your thoughts and feedback on the tiny home legislation that we're proposing, so again, please use our survey to do so. The next tool also, again, currently exists in the code. We refer to it as apartment conversions. This allows larger, sometimes historic homes to be divided into multiple dwelling units, and it's not being utilized very much at all in the county. So we would like to propose to reduce the minimum home size so that like slightly smaller homes could potentially be divided into separate dwelling units, and also reduce the minimum size of each unit so that it's a little bit more feasible to create such an apartment conversion. This would allow what's often referred to as aging in place, and will allow for income opportunities for those homeowners, and also benefit renters that are looking for affordable units. The last tool that we're looking in the code is regarding our moderately priced dwelling units, or MPDUs. As the county executive stated, we already have a requirement right now in the code that when seeking a rezoning, you will have to give us 20% of your housing stock to and reserve that for moderately priced dwelling units. Under this program, we've already created hundreds. There were prior workforce development, workforce housing programs where we've created even more units, but we really can do more. It's still kind of in the under 1,000 units right now. So we can do more, and we are evaluating several different ways of creating incentives to produce moderately priced dwelling units in housing projects. So we're looking at the density bonus, which is right now at 20%. Is that being utilized very much? We don't think so. Should that be increased? We are talking about it. We want to hear your ideas, and we need to know what will actually work to get these units built. And the last program that we are piloting is called the Housing Now program. For those projects that go above and beyond what the code requires, the department will evaluate applications and take in projects under the Housing Now program, which will essentially expedite your application through our system, make a more streamlined process, and have regular check-ins with department staff in order to get your project approved as quickly as possible. We know that this type of expedited treatment can result in a lot of cost savings to a project applicant, and we think it can be a beneficial tool in reducing the barriers to affordable housing. Thank you so much. We have an affordable housing developer who will validate everything I just said.
Thank you. I will say ditto to all of the previous speakers. I'm Deanna Sargent, Vice President of Community Development at SENER. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Newcastle County's 2050 Affordable Housing Initiative. As speakers have mentioned and will mention, there is a great need for affordable housing throughout this state. At SENER, we provide financing to developers to create affordable housing. To date, the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program has been the most successful intervention for creating affordable housing. However, with the ongoing housing shortage, it's time we think more creatively about our approach to creating diverse, affordable housing options with meaningful, intentional, and effective policy solutions. The initiatives laid out in the Newcastle County 2050 plan embrace recommended housing solutions that promote non-traditional approaches that can effectively reduce the housing gap. Moreover, these initiatives help moderate costs for housing production, which may incentivize developers to become more active in the affordable housing space. It's time to move the discussion, as County Executive Matt Meyer said, around addressing the affordable housing shortage to action, and these solutions move us in the right direction. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to what's to come under the Affordable Housing Initiative.
Thank you so much, Deanna, Rachel, and of course, Char. Really appreciate it. I want to recognize also Tawana Pierce, who's here from Interfaith Housing. Thank you. Stacy Napper from Councilman Toole's office. Thank you for being here, as well as a representative from Leon Wiener Associates. Stephanie Rizzo, I think, was here somewhere, yeah, who works hard on this every day, has for a long, long time. So thank you. We have several elected state reps who chose to come here. One had a shorter drive or shorter walk than another. And I warned you. So why don't we call up Representative Lambert first. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. For those of you that haven't been to Claymont yet, welcome. I want to thank County Executive Matt Myers. I want to thank Char, Carrie Casey, Rich Hall, the entire Newcastle County team for choosing Claymont. When it comes to affordable housing, Claymont is in need, and it is serious. 45% of Claymont are renters. We need effective, meaningful progress in regards to affordable housing, and the 2050 comprehensive plan is a great start. For years, Newcastle County has been developing these relationships, nurturing relationships with community, with our state government. As Vice Chair of Housing, along with Chair Representative Kendra Johnson, we've been working hard on housing goals. I want to thank Ms. Stucker with the Housing Alliance, Ms. Sargent with Senair. Working together is how we get there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and our communities deserve the best. So we look forward to making more progress. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Representative Lambert. And you make a great team with Representative Johnson. We appreciate your support. So come on up. Say a few words if you want.
Always love how this works out. You come to support, and then someone asks you for a few words. Representative Lambert, thank you for allowing me to be in your district. And yes, he had a much shorter ride. Yes. I had a half-hour ride in the rain. But this was so important. I was like, just be steady, stay away from cars, and get here. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here, and at the same time, I'm envious. Why? Because this isn't my district, and I have the same problems in my district. But I'm so excited and hopeful for affordable housing initiatives. So very necessary, period. I will share with you a quick story. I have a friend, we've been friends for about 18 years. This woman works every day, has a full-time job, making $40,000+ a year, right? Not a lot of money, but you think 40 is a good amount. Add to it, she's also part of the gig economy. She does Uber, she does, what's that thing, DoorDash, and still can't make ends meet. She lived in a rental. It's exactly where she wanted to live. It was safe, it was beautiful. It wasn't affordable. I received a phone call from my friend last month, and she told me that she no longer lived there. She had to leave because she couldn't afford it. And by God's grace, she was able to move in with her sister so that she could get herself together. But that's not what people want. People want and need affordable housing, plain and simple. And I'm sorry for my emotions because I'm not sorry. I'm sorry, but I'm not. Because she's someone I care about, and she's just one of so many more who are living the same experiences. I will end with this, and I always say it, actually two things. One, ditto, 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 ditto. Okay, all the dittos are done. I always, all roads for me, because I'm a geek, leads back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Think about the triangle. And what's at the bottom of that triangle, right? Shelter. Shelter means stability. It means all those things. And if you don't have what is at the bottom, you will never get to the top, which is self-actualization. So just think about that. I am so excited about this. I do want it in my community, just saying, okay? We have the same problems in the 5th district. For now, I'm just gonna celebrate and be like, woohoo! Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Representative Johnson, AKA the closer. Fantastic. We're going to just sort of take you around to every county event now and say, okay, to close it out, Representative. Seriously, thank you for that. And I should highlight that what we're announcing today applies anywhere in unincorporated Newcastle County. So we had to pick one place to do it. Next time we'll be in the 5th District, all right? Next time we'll be in the 5th District to announce it. But the things we're announcing today, once put in place, once passed by County Council, will apply here in Claymont and will apply in the 5th District and across Newcastle County and, God willing, maybe one day at the state too. I think that's all we have. We'll stick around. Thank you so much again for joining us today. There's one young man I did not introduce. Come on up. Yeah, come on up. How many of you, how old are you?
22.
How many of you, when you were 22, attended public events like this? Yeah. One, two. That means you're ahead of the game. What's your name?
Elijah.
Elijah.
Yes.
Thank you for joining. You came with Marcus?
Yes, I did.
On the Henry campaign. Thank you for joining us today. Give Elijah a round of applause. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.